Hey everyone, my name's Dom, welcome to the channel. Today's video is going to be another tag video. I'm not feeling great today, so I'm going to preface it by saying I've got a dodgy throat, and if I sound a bit off, there's your reason, nice and upfront. Now before we get to the questions, go all YouTubey on the like and subscribe buttons, and then once you've done that, let's go see what we're talking about today. So this one's been doing the rounds a little bit on BookTube, and I know a lot of people have done it, but I was tagged by Nico from Nico's Book Reviews to do the Universes Collide tag. This is a good way of mashing up various different books or series and seeing what the characters would get up to if they swapped places or interacted with each other. So there's 5 questions to this one, so a nice and short one, and the first one is the switch up. Choose 2 protagonists from different series and swap places. So for me, I'm just going to go straight out there with 2 of my favourite characters, all-time favourite fantasy characters. I'm going to take Dross, the original legend from a book of the same name, and I'm going to swap him with Drizzt Do'Urden from the Forgotten Realms series. So I think this could be a really interesting one to see. I would love to see Drizzt with Guinevere and Twinkle and Ice in Death, his 2 swords, fighting the hordes off and defending the massive fortress of Dros Delnoch. This is where we first met Dross in David Gemmell's debut novel, and it's one of those ultimate heroic tales, and I think watching this dark elf there and the giant panther marauding through these attacking hordes, I think could be really, really interesting. On the other side of that coin, you've then got Dross, the old man, kind of one of the elder statesmen, really, really famous for carrying his double-headed butterfly-shaped axe, Snaga, and I think it would be quite fun to see him and Bruna Battlehammer, the dwarf who is one of Drizzt's companions. They'd make a great pairing. They're quite similar other than the size. One's a man, one's a dwarf, but I think they could have some good times together and some good stories to tell over a few ales when battle's done. Next up, it's V for Villainy, so choose a villain to get their own story. And I thought about this one for a while. I did initially think I could go with Azeroth from the Banished Lands, the Faithful and Fallen and Of Blood and Bone series by John Gwynne, but we kind of see a bit of him already and some of the more interesting kind of subordinates and followers of his. We see POV stories for some of those characters. I won't spoil them by naming them. So that's kind of, I guess, already been done. So the one I'm going to go with on this one is Befford from the First Law series by Joe Abercrombie. I really enjoyed all of the bits of the First Law series with the named men, so Logan Ninefingers and his followers, Dogman and Grim and all of those. I think it was really, really interesting. Again, really good stories to tell, and I think seeing a story of kind of the early years of that and how they came to follow Befford and what drove a wedge between them, I think that could be a really interesting one to listen to and to read as well. Question 3 is the adaptation. Choose a character to be novelised. This one's kind of difficult because most of the characters who I want to see are from stories, they are from books, so they have been novelised. So I've chosen one from a film. Now there has been a novelisation and at least one follow-up of this particular film, but Willow is one of my all-time favourite movies, and one of my favourite characters from that I would love to see in his own stories is the great swordsman Mad Martigan, played by Val Kilmer, and the music really makes this a lot better than it already is, but just the scenes of him throwing a sword around and charging through a load of enemies, and he's kind of built this story of who he is, and I guess Willow, when they meet, he doesn't believe him. And then you get this one scene when they're kind of escaping on the mountainside, rolling down the hill on the shield and so forth, but Mad Martigan just blitzes his way out of this tent and just throws a sword around and goes through a load of people. And then you got Willow just sees this for the first time and just looks at him and says,
"You are great."
and it's just brilliant for me. It's one of my favourite films, and it's one of many actually great scenes involving Madmartigan. So I'd love to see him get his own stories and have maybe a trilogy or something like that of him just doing the same thing on the page. Number 4 is the crossover. This is picking two characters from different worlds to interact. So rather than swapping over like in question 1, they're just going to meet up, and it says interact, and that kind of makes me think, just have a chat, sit in a pub and have a couple of pints or something. Again, I thought long and hard over this one because I couldn't really think what to do. I'm reading The Greatcoats at the moment by Sebastian de Castell, and I'm really thinking the amount that Thelkio goes through in those books, he could really do with a therapist just to sit through and talk it out. But that's not the kind of book I read, so none of my stories have therapists in them. So instead, I've gone with Gandalf and Rin from the Poppy War, purely for no other reason than I think she really needs someone patient and understanding, but also strong and powerful, just to go in there and give her a good talking to and a smack upside the head. And then question 5 is the tonal shift. So choose a story to be told in a different fashion, so either a different genre or just a different actual tone to the story. So the one I've chosen I don't think would be too much of a difference actually, but two stories that I've read recently are The Black Tongue Thief and Assassin's Apprentice. And I think that it could work really well if Assassin's Apprentice was retold in a bit more of a style of The Black Tongue Thief. So these are both first person stories. They're both characters who have a lot of kind of street smarts, but in The Black Tongue Thief, there's a bit more humour to it, and maybe it's because at the time of Assassin's Apprentice at least, the character from The Black Tongue Thief is older, so he's got a bit more sort of world weariness around him. But I think having Fitz from Assassin's Apprentice talking kind of more in the tone and the style of Kinch from The Black Tongue Thief could be really funny. Just some of the, if nothing else, some of the words that he uses, and he's not making up words, it's just that he's introducing us to words that he would use in his everyday life. Whereas in Assassin's Apprentice, it's kind of words that are more familiar to us in the first place. But I think a bit more humour would lighten up Assassin's Apprentice in the first place. But just having those extra little bits, those extra curse words and so forth, and learning what they are in Fitz's world, I think could be really interesting and really fun. And then finally, tag, you're it. So I'm going to tag two people who I've recently become friends with on Discord and started subscribing and watching their videos. First one is Grace Dion. She's relatively new. She's been doing BookTube longer than I have, and it really shows. She's really comfortable in front of the camera, and she is absolutely killing it. The videos that she produces are well thought out. She's got a lot of good thoughts and a lot of good taste in fantasy as well. We enjoy a lot of the same books. Second person I'm going to tag is Katie without an E. Katie is a newer booktuber than myself, but she's way past that those first few videos where the nerves show now, and she's doing a great job as well. She's got an interesting perspective because she's just coming back to reading after not doing so for a long time. So this may or may not be a more difficult tag for you to do, Katie, but we'll find out, I guess. And that's it for today, short and sweet, which I probably appreciate more than anyone because you can probably hear in my voice that I'm not my normal self today. So I hope it was enjoyable anyway. I hope that you get some good ideas, some good imagination from some of the crossovers and so forth that I've talked about today. And I'm going to go and get myself a drink and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.